First things first, I just wanted to thank you guys for 600 subscribers. Thank you. So today, guys, we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be taking on a completely different topic than what I normally cover on this channel. I just wanted to make this video because I thought it was a fun idea, and to be honest, I just wanted to tell somebody about this one game that I found, and who better than my YouTube followers or whoever wants to watch this video. So for those of you who don't know and need a brief catcher-upper, the Backrooms is a very popular internet horror phenomenon that spawned in a couple years ago via a post on 4chan. It was a very bare-bones post, and I can briefly explain to you what the Backrooms is with the description given to us from this one 4chan post. It reads as follows.
If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it is nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum humbuzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you.
And so, as you can see, it's some pretty unsettling stuff. It's a very interesting concept, and it has actually spawned several fan-made horror games, as well as an entire lore surrounding the Backrooms and its many other levels, as we will soon to know them as. The Backrooms is also intertwined with a concept known as liminal spaces, with the Backrooms being the most famous example of a liminal space. For those of you who do not know what a liminal space is, if you've ever seen a video like this, you've seen a liminal space. These have gotten very popular on the internet, and they've been associated with things like dreamcore, weirdcore, other things that we'll get to later on in the video. I personally will not be explaining too much of what a liminal space is, or sort of going into that topic much at all, because it doesn't really matter for this specific video. However, I will be sort of getting back to that topic and briefly explaining it later on when we actually get to one of these Backrooms games that matters in terms of liminal spaces. So, why are we here then? We understand what the Backrooms is, we understand what liminal spaces are, we understand a couple of stuff pertaining to this topic, but what are we actually going to do with this information? Well, as I said previously, this concept has spawned in a lot of fan-made games, and I did say that we were going to be playing some Roblox games. Yes, Roblox. Everybody loves Roblox. I love Roblox. It's a very fun game. It has a ton of Backrooms-based games. Most of them are trash, but that's fine, that's fine. I found a couple that I think are pretty good, and so we're going to be playing all of them. We're going to be playing 4 games, and we are going to be ranking them on how well they sort of show and depict the idea of the Backrooms. So how well they depict the horror aspect, how well they depict the aesthetic, and how well the games just play in general. A game that depicts the horror and aesthetic very well can still be a shit game, you know? So we're going to be reviewing them as games and how they actually portray the concept of the Backrooms. And without further ado, let's get into this freaking video. So the first game on our list is a game that I have been playing for a while. I have been around since when this game only had 2 levels. It now has 31. So this has been a couple years in the making in terms of my experience with this game. It's also been the game that I discovered first out of all 4 of these games. Most of these games I discovered very recently. But this game is Shrek in the Backrooms. I know, it's a very stupid title. It's just a dumb little game. It's Roblox. It doesn't matter. This is one of the original Backrooms games that I played, and I think it deserves a spot on this list because it does have some redeeming qualities in terms of depicting the idea of the Backrooms. So, let's get into it. So, before we get to actually reviewing Shrek in the Backrooms, I did want to go over and explain that 3 criteria that I mentioned as for what makes a good Backrooms game a good Backrooms game. So, first up is going to be the horror aspect. Now, when it comes to the horror aspect, we have to ask ourselves one question, which is, why is the Backrooms scary? Now, in my opinion, the Backrooms is scary because of a couple of things. One, the loneliness that it creates. It creates this feeling of dread of being alone, because that's essentially what the Backrooms is. It's just a bunch of empty space that you've been plopped into. You're gonna feel pretty alone. Secondly is the anxiety that it creates. The anxiety of not knowing what's around the corner. That is much more scary than just being shrouded with entities at all times. A game that just tries to artificially inflate its spooky meter by just throwing entities at you every 5 seconds is not going to get a very high score in this category. The game has to make sure that you're scared shitless, but without just throwing entities at you. It has to use the environment of the Backrooms and the concept of the Backrooms to actually elicit that fear. So that is the horror aspect. Secondly is the aesthetic. The Backrooms has a specific aesthetic, and if you break this aesthetic and you make levels in your game that don't really feel like the Backrooms or just are kind of stupid, it's going to completely destroy all of the atmosphere that you've built up with your horror aspect and with your gameplay. So, we have to really think about this. Like, if we're reviewing a game, we have to go through each level and say, does this really feel like the Backrooms? Do I get the feeling of the Backrooms from this specific level? And if we don't, we can't give that game a 10 out of 10. We have to knock out some points. Some of these games will get the aspect of the atmosphere more right than others. All of them do have some redeeming qualities when it comes to the aesthetic. Finally is the gameplay. This is very simple. Does your game work? Are there game-breaking glitches? Are some levels impossible to beat on certain consoles? Can I play this game with minimal annoyances, not from anything that is supposed to be in the game, but from something that's not supposed to be there because you screwed up some aspect of the gameplay? Some of these games have very glaring issues when it comes to their gameplay, and so they will be knocked down heavily for it. However, I promise we are done yapping, and we are going to get into part 1 of our Shrek in the Backrooms review, which is going to be its horror aspect. So when it comes to Shrek in the Backrooms horror aspect, it has a very 50-50 feel in terms of quality. Half of these levels feel okay, and then the other half are just not at all what they should be in terms of their horror aspect. We should start with level 1 to sort of unpack this problem one by one. So, when you spawn into level 1, it is not a solo lobby, and it is not a lobby where you can invite friends and then you can all play as a group. No, you are put in with everybody else who is also playing that game at the same time as you. So, immediately, any feelings of loneliness are automatically just nixed and they're gone, because you have all these other people who just have no idea what they're doing, running around aimlessly with you. So, any feelings of loneliness, gone. And that's a huge part of the horror aspect, is just that feeling of loneliness, just gone. Secondly, the feeling of anxiety is completely removed as well, because there's just so many entities. They just fucking puke out entities. They're just vomiting entities constantly. There's 1,000 of them. They won't shut up. They're super loud. They run at you constantly. You can just kill them too. You can just buy weapons and shoot them. There's no real point in them even existing because they're so easy to avoid and just get rid of. They are not scary at all. And this is not good. If you want to build an aspect to your game of horror, of true, like, feelings of dread and anxiety and loneliness that comes with the Backrooms, you can't do this. It just doesn't work. What I will say is that after level 1, these feelings sort of come back, these feelings of loneliness and dread, because most of the kids who play the game are brain-dead 7-year-olds, and none of them get past level 1 to begin with. But first impressions are everything, and the first impression of this game is, this is just not scary. Furthermore, we have two sort of pervasive problems that exist throughout most of the game or the entirety of the game. The first one of these is that they put arrows in the first 4 levels to tell you where to go. Nothing destroys the loneliness and anxiety of a labyrinth and maze by just telling you where to go to get out of the maze. It's insanity. It's a maze. You're not supposed to know where to go. You're supposed to find it out on your own. You're supposed to be fearing what's around the corner. You're supposed to be thinking about, am I ever going to get out of here? How do I get out? If I tell you where to go, you won't be fearing that anymore. It just completely detracts from any fear that you could have had of the unknown when you're just being told like a baby where to go. Now I know why they did this. It's because everyone who plays the game is a baby, so you need to be told where to go, or else you'll never progress to the other 31 freaking levels. Luckily, it's only for the first 4 levels that they do this. Unluckily, these are the only levels that are actually really mazes, and the rest of the levels don't necessarily need them. There is a maze in the later part of the game, but there's not much others. Next up is something that cannot be ignored, which is all of this cancer on the side of your screen. This was not always there, and I know that it wasn't always there because I have screenshots of points in time when it wasn't. It is completely invasive, pervasive, and any other aceive that you want to add on to that sentence, and detracts from the experience fully because they're such an eyesore, such meaningless nonsense. In the past, there were still some buttons, and the other games don't have any of these buttons on your screen. However, the buttons that were there were at least useful. You had a help menu that was kind of small at the top of the screen, whatever. You had the teleport menu, which is actually very useful because there's 31 levels, and the other games that we're going to be talking about later, if you want to change the levels, you have to go to the main menu, so this sort of solves that problem. And then finally, there was your crafting menu, because you can find items throughout the game, and you can use these items to make weapons. Everyone knows that the best weapons are got by purchasing them with Robux, though. You could make a ray gun. That's pretty cool. You could make a ray gun from zombies, Call of Duty Zombies. That's pretty awesome. I never did it, though, because it took too many resources, and if you die, you lose it forever. But it was cool. Yeah, so don't tell me where to go. It's a labyrinth, and you can get this shit off my screen. Basically, those are the things that detract from the game being scary. I know that this game is made for children, and that's why all of this crap is there, but shh, I'm reviewing the game as if it's for adults. Just shut the fuck up. Shh. Overall, I really can't give Shrek in the Backrooms anything more than like a 4 out of 10 for its horror aspect, because overall, it's just not that good. It could be so much better, but it's just held back by all of these hindrances that I mentioned previously. However, next up is the aesthetic, which it does get much better, but still not perfect. Next up is the aesthetic, and Shrek in the Backrooms has a very decent understanding of what makes the Backrooms for like the first 20 levels or so. This game does implement a lot of Backrooms levels that are just pulled straight off the wiki, the Backrooms wiki, and implemented quite well for what the game is. My personal favorite levels from this game in terms of the aesthetic are the Playrooms level, as I mentioned previously, and also the playset level. This game does employ a lot of dreamcore and weirdcore aesthetics in some of its levels as well, which I quite enjoy. One of these is the pool rooms level that we will talk about later on. Unfortunately, this game has a plethora of just awful levels in terms of aesthetic, not even because they're bad levels in a vacuum, but because they're just simply not the Backrooms. Some of these levels I can rattle off the top of my head. We have Iron Sub. It is a knockoff of Iron Lung. You have the school. It is a knockoff of Baldi's Basics. We have the plane, then the plane crash. We have the musky crab, then we have the rotten onion. I don't even remember what the fuck the level's called. I think it's called like Toxic Rooms or something. It's trash, doesn't matter. The lab. These are what I would like to call story time levels. They're not actually mazes or anything. They're just levels that have a story behind them that you follow, and that's not at all how Backrooms levels works. I want to play a game about the Backrooms, and then each individual level is a level. They're not like their own sectioned off cutscenes, essentially, because that's what the lab is. It's just a cutscene, but you play the cutscene. It's really dumb, and it's, once again, just a throwaway level. If this game did not have all of these just crappy, not Backrooms levels, the game would have significantly less than 31 levels. Unfortunately, they're all there, and so we're left with this. One of the levels that I mentioned, the pool rooms level, has a very decent aesthetic, and it gets the Backrooms quite well. It does have some dreamcore aesthetics, as you can see with like its, sort of dreamy, bright atmosphere, and it's sort of like walls that are a maze like the Backrooms, but sort of still uplifting like how dreamcore usually is. And it just gets the Backrooms correct. I mean, it is a Backrooms level off the wiki, and it's implemented rather well, as I said previously. Because of this, I can't really give the Backrooms, Shrek in the Backrooms, a much higher score than roughly a 7 out of 10 in this category, because even though a lot of these levels do get the aesthetic quite well, these levels are still part of the game, and they're going to hold it back quite a bit. To be honest, I probably should have given it like a 6 out of 10, but I'm going to be nice to it just because it's not necessarily meant for the level of reviewing that I'm going to be putting the rest of these games through. For Shrek in the Backrooms gameplay, overall the game works fairly okay. There are some small glitches, one glitch being that sometimes whenever you win a level and you're in like the winner's cutscene, the entity of that level will catch you while you're in the cutscene and then kill you, and then you'll have to start over because you didn't get the winning item quick enough, I guess? I don't know why this happens. If I'm in the winner's cutscene, I should just win. I should have immunity. This only happens in a couple levels, so it's not that big of a problem. Secondly, we also have the problem of just entities not making any noise, so you'll turn a corner and there'll be an entity right there, and you have no idea because it just does not make any noise. These problems only affect a couple levels, so it's not too much of a big deal. Overall, we're going to give this section an 8 out of 10 because of those issues. Overall, Shrek in the Backrooms gets a score of a 6 out of 10. If you average it out, it's a 6 out of 10. I think that this is a pretty decent score for what is basically a kid's game. I mean, it could be better, but also it could be worse. Like, it's Shrek in the fucking Backrooms, man. What did you expect? Next game. Next up, we have Escape the Backrooms, which is a game based on the Steam game of the same title. Because it's based on the Steam game, it is very high quality. Compared to everything else on Roblox, this game is phenomenal in terms of its visual appearance, which is great. However, this game has some very glaring issues, which is why it's coming before the other two games that we're going to review, because I do want to end this video off on a high note. We will get to those game-breaking issues later on, but first up, let's just work with the horror aspect. Starting off with the horror aspect, I'd say that this game gets it effectively perfectly. You start off in level 0 just like you do in all the other games that we're going to be talking about, and when I spawned in, I was scared shitless. Not because I was making myself scared, or because I wanted to be scared, just because of how the game made me feel. I was expecting the entity to come out at literally any point in time. There wasn't one, though. There is not an entity on this first level, aside from the part of the level where there is an entity. He's confined to a specific spot. But in the other parts of the level, I was like, where is he? Is he gonna come out? I was so scared because of how the game made me feel. Everything worked perfectly in terms of it's making me feel alone and making me feel anxious that I was so scared of literally nothing. There was a part where I saw my mic move and I went, oh, because I thought it was an entity on the screen, but it wasn't. I was just scaring myself. I was like, what the fuck is happening? It was very well done in terms of its horror aspect for these first few levels. And the entities in this game do not detract from the experience whatsoever. Remember when I was explaining the criteria for the horror aspect, I was talking about how a game couldn't just be vomiting entities at all times and get a very good score in this category. This game does not just vomit entities at you. The entity is, as I said, confined to one specific spot. What this does is it allows you to be scared shitless for the right reasons in the rest of the game and still have some threat of being attacked by an entity in the spot that he is confined to. The spot that he's confined to is where you have to find parts to unlock the exit to that level, so there is some sort of urgency whenever you're trying to do that. I will say that I like how this game has a lot of stamina. You're much faster than the entity when you're running, and the entity is not very aggressive. Some of these other games, when you're running away, you will die. Like, it doesn't matter that you're running away, because the entity is just as fast as you while you're running, and when you run out of stamina, he's still on your ass, so you're still gonna die. There's no real point in running. In this game, running is how you escape, and you can escape, which is good. It's great. These levels do not detract from the horror experience whatsoever. The entities are far and few between, and they are placed in the good part of the levels. Like, they just work. They work. That's all I can say. They work. So, it gets a 10 out of 10. Not much else I can say about that. Next up is the aesthetic, which I must say is also perfect. The game is entirely liminal spaces that feel like Backrooms levels. There's nothing in the levels that detract from that atmosphere, and there's no levels in this game that feel like non-Backrooms levels. Like, the game just feels right in the atmosphere. And so for that, I'm going to give this another 10 out of 10. I know it's not a very lengthy review of this section. However, this game has a very glaring issue that will immediately destroy everything else that we've talked about so far. And that is in the gameplay. The gameplay gets a 1 out of 10. This game is not playable. I have not completed this game. In fact, I'm only on level 3 of 10 plus, and that is because it just is not playable. There are so many problems with this game. Let's start out with the first one. 1. The buttons just don't work. If you are playing this on Xbox, some of the buttons won't work. You can't close the control menu without a keyboard. You have to hit M. I tried clicking it with my Xbox controller, it did not work. So, yeah, you can't access your toolbar without a keyboard. You can use items that you have selected in your toolbar with a controller, but you can't actually scroll through the options on your toolbar without a keyboard, which is terrible. I think that if you're going to have a game that is available on PC and on Xbox, the game needs to be playable on both PC and Xbox. You can't just say, well, you can play it on Xbox, just hook up a controller and a mouse. Even if you did that, this game still wouldn't work, but that's just stupid. That's just PC with extra steps. A game should be playable on Xbox, and this is just unacceptable. But this is very minor compared to the other problems with this game. Secondly, I was in the Meg, which is like a, it's like a Backrooms lore thing. It's like the group that's exploring the Backrooms. I was in like the hub area, and I was trying to input this code into the computer, and it took me like 17 times of constantly re-entering it to finally get it to work. I did end up getting it to work. I don't know what I did to get it to work. I had to restart this later to try and fix something that I did, and I couldn't get it to work again. I don't know why, it just wouldn't work, and I gave up and just went back to what I was doing previously on level 3, which I still have not completed, and I have no clue how to complete it. None of the guides on YouTube include it because I think it's a newer level that was added with the update, and all of the guide videos are made before the update. But there's this like box, there's 3 boxes, and when you go into them, there's like a binary sequence on the box itself. And I tried every single thing I could, the mouse, the keyboard, every single button on the controller, every single button on the keyboard, clicking and prodding and seeing if anything would work. Nothing was doing anything, and whenever you exited the box and went back in, the binary sequence was completely different. So I just don't know how to complete this level, and that sucks, because that means I can't play the game. And this game had level fun, and I wanted to play level fun. It was level 4, I was on level 3. Overall, it gets a 1 out of 10, because I can't play the game. How can I give it anything more than a 1 out of 10 if the problems in the game prevented me from even getting halfway through the game? That is a glaring game-breaking problem, and I don't even know what specifically the problem is. There just is one. There's a lot of them. And if I played the game further after figuring out how to beat this level, I'd probably find a bunch more. I just don't know what they are yet. Now, if this game is perfectly playable on PC, that's fine. But I play on Xbox, and on Xbox, it's a 1 out of 10 for gameplay. Overall, that gives you the final score of 7 out of 10 for this entire game. Boo-hoo for you. Next up on our roster, and there's actually a bit of a story with this game. This game is Apeirophobia. Now, the story is that I wanted to play this game before I even had the idea for making this video. I remembered playing one of the levels in my head, and I was trying to find the game by searching Backrooms games, and I was playing through all these other games that are in this video, trying to figure out, like, well, how do I find this freaking level? I want to play this level. Which one of these games has this level? And then I ended up playing all these other games, which sort of inspired this video. I realized that this game is not called Backrooms by name. You actually have to click on Apeirophobia to play this specific level. And I was like, oh, that's why I couldn't find it, because I didn't even think to click Apeirophobia. It just looked like some other game that I had played that I didn't really like. I didn't even know why it showed up in Backrooms, because it didn't look like a Backrooms game. This has nothing to do with the review or any scores that it's going to receive, just a little funny story that kind of inspired this video. Anyways though, we are going to start off with its horror aspect, and this game is also another very highly reviewed, popular game that's very high in quality as well. So, let's get into that. The quality of this game's horror aspect does tend to be a bit iffy, and I think the main reason for that is the quality of the entities and the actual implementation of them. The entities tend to be the focal point of each of the levels that they inhabit, which is not how I generally like my entities to be implemented when it comes to Backrooms levels, and this does actually cause a little bit of an issue when we talk about how scary these games are. They don't really make a feeling of loneliness or dread or anxiety for the right reasons. They tend to just be like run away from Entity Simulator, and a lot of times the entities are I see you, you die, because as I said previously, you can't run from them very well. If you run out of stamina, you die because they're faster than you. It's kind of annoying in some levels because you'll spawn in the game and they're right there and you insta-die, which is so stupid. But I just can't give it too good of a score in terms of its horror aspect in some of these levels because of the way that the entities are implemented. Some of these levels do implement the entities correctly. One of these levels is level 4, and the reason for this is because the entity is not a pervasive problem throughout the entire level. It's also not the focal point of the level. The focal point of this level is the puzzle that you have to solve. You have to like get some keys to unlock a thing, and then you have to push some buttons to unlock the door to exit. The entity is a threat throughout this entire process, but he's not the kind of entity that just chases you and you run away screaming. No, this one is very unique. So first of all, he's blind. He can't see you. He can only hear you. So this means that the only way that he could catch you is if he hears you. The way that you get around this is by crouching. And if you crouch, he can't hear you. Any sound that you make, like a drawer opening, he'll come and see what's up. You can walk through him without dying as long as you're crouched, which is very useful. And overall, you can complete this level with the constant threat of this entity without it actually impacting the quality of the level, because he's not annoying. Whenever I die to an entity in a game, I'm not thinking to myself, wow, that was so scary. I'm thinking, god damn it, I have to do all of this over again. That's really what I think whenever I die to an entity. So for this entity to be implemented in this way, it makes the experience so much better, because if you die to it, you do have to start the entire level over again, and it is a pretty lengthy level, but if you die to it, it was kind of your fault. It's not necessarily like the, I see you die type situation where it's like, god damn it, really? It's like, okay, I fucked up, I have to start over now. Another one of the levels that gets this pretty well and doesn't necessarily have an entity that's too pervasive is the fun rooms. It is my favorite level in the entire Backrooms lore, and this one does have a very decent implementation of it. So, the first part of the level, there is no entity. The entity is confined to the second half of the level, so you get to experience this atmosphere of loneliness and dread and anxiety from the first part of the level because you're not under any threat of entities. And it's very good. Like, I was really scared waiting for the entity to show up because I didn't know when he would. He didn't until the second half, but it was very decent in terms of that horror aspect for the first half. When you get to the second half, the entity can easily be ran from. There's only one of them, and he's not too fast, and he's not too pervasive. The way that he operates is sort of like a weeping angel. When you're staring at him, he can't hit you. When you turn around, he starts to hit you. If you stare at him for too long, he'll teleport behind you, and you have like 2 seconds to quickly turn around to not die. But if you know where to go in the level to collect the things that you need to collect to, like, exit the level, it's very simple to just run from him, and he'll, like, teleport, disappear away, and when you hear him teleport, you just turn around to see him and then run away again. It's very simple. On a side note, I don't necessarily like the way the party goers, that's the name of the entity in the fun rooms, was implemented. I don't like that it's a weeping angel, because lore-wise, it's not a weeping angel that can teleport. That's never how it's been. It's been these people that have been infected with the disease, and they, like, chase you around the level. But whatever, it doesn't matter. I do like the horror aspect for this specific level, and that other level, level 4, that I mentioned previously. I swear to God, we've gone through, like, 17 shirt changes, because I just can't get this video done in one day without some sort of interruption. But whatever. Anyways, for Aperophobia's horror aspect, we're going to have to give it a final score of 7 out of 10. There were quite a few levels that didn't really meet the bar that I was looking for this category. However, it was brought up significantly with the few levels, some that I mentioned, some that I didn't, that had a very positive impact on its horror aspect overall. And I believe that a 7 out of 10 is a very decent and good score for this game, given that it's nowhere near as bad as Shrek in the Backrooms, even on the levels that I don't particularly like in terms of the horror aspect. So overall, 7 out of 10. We're going to move on to the aesthetic next. For this game's aesthetic, I must say it is far greater than Shrek in the Backrooms, but not necessarily as good as the previous game that we mentioned, Escape the Backrooms. And that's for a couple reasons. First of all, I have not actually completed this game, and that is because the later levels after the fun rooms are very bad. They don't feel like Backrooms levels, and they don't have very good horror aspect. Some people have also expressed concerns about this. I guess there was like some sort of developer change that caused these new levels to be just lackluster. So we're really only going to be looking at the first 13 levels in terms of the aesthetic for this category. So the reason that this game has an aesthetic score that is lower than the previous game is because there are a few levels that don't really fit the bill, in my opinion, in terms of a Backrooms level. One of these levels, for example, is I believe the 5th level. It's like this cave system where you're running away from a skin stealer, which is a type of entity that disguises itself as you, and it chases you around. And it can actually be a pretty decently scary entity, but that doesn't necessarily matter for this. Some of the other games have the skin stealers on different levels than this one, but the level itself does not feel like a Backrooms level. Because whenever I think of like a Backrooms level, I think of like a liminal space, and liminal spaces, they are almost never nature. They are always like a building, a corridor, like a playhouse. Even if they are nature, it's usually like a playground of sorts, or something that there's some man-made aspect to it. This cave level does not feel like a Backrooms level in terms of liminal spaces, because it's just a cave system. Like, there's some lights to illuminate the area, but it doesn't feel like a place that you'd no-clip into. It just feels like you're underground. It just doesn't really make much sense, and it kind of takes me out of the experience. There's a couple of other levels that I don't particularly enjoy. For example, there's one where you're like in this parking lot. I've seen this level be done in other Backrooms games that we're not going to be reviewing in this video, but I've seen this specific level done in a way that does actually convey properly the aesthetic of the Backrooms, but this level just does not get it right at all, in my opinion, because you're constantly being chased by this really slow entity. I know that that seems like something that would be in the horror aspect section, but he's not particularly scary, and he's not like a constant threat in the terms of like you can't run from him. You can run from him pretty easily. He's just always there, and it takes me out of the experience so much, and it just does not feel right for the aesthetic of the Backrooms. So there are a couple levels that just don't really fit this bill, but for the most part, it actually gets this quite well, some even perfectly. The pool rooms levels, I say the pool rooms levels plural because there's multiple of them. There's several of them. There's like 3, I think. They're very good. I actually commend whoever designed those levels because they fit the aesthetic perfectly. And they also have a decent horror aspect as well. However, the game is brought down slightly by those lackluster ones that I mentioned earlier. Overall, I'd give the aesthetic of this game an 8 out of 10. Mainly just because there was 2 levels that were kind of bleh, and there was a roughly 10 levels that I played, so that's an 8 out of 10. But it's certainly better than Shrek in the frickin' Backrooms. I mean, that's a nice bar to be raised above, so congrats on that one. Let's get to the gameplay. Now it's time for the gameplay, and this game does have a couple glitches. They're not game-breaking and they're not awful. They are definitely meaningful, and we need to mention them. First of all, throughout the entire point of you playing this game, I don't know if this is Xbox specific, PC specific, or if you just constantly have this no matter what console you play on. You have permanent stick drift. What I mean by this is, if you have a controller, right, it doesn't matter what kind of controller it is, the move button, you will constantly have stick drift. I do not have stick drift, because I know that I don't have stick drift. Like, I can play other games and not have stick drift, but whenever I'm on this specific Roblox game, Other Roblox games have this too, and I don't know why. When I'm on this specific Roblox game, it's constantly moving me in the direction that I, like, last moved in. So if I last moved this way, it would be, like, swaying me this way. If I push forward, it'll, like, go this way. I do not know what the issue is or why that happens or how you even get that to happen whenever you're designing a Roblox game. But it's kind of annoying, and some problems that come with that is whenever you're trying to input a code to, like, open a door or whatever, you have to be, like, right up against the code pad to do it. And whenever you enter the, like, code entry screen, it freezes you in place, but you still move because of the drift. And so if you want to actually input a code, you have to, like, quickly open up the code menu, then back out, then do it again so that you can type while being right up against it. I was having so many problems trying to input codes, especially on level 7, because you have to input 2 of them. One of those codes, you have to just take a book that has like 100 of them, and then you have to just keep putting them in until you get one right. That level, I almost gave up and then just did not play that game because I could not figure out how to get the code to work. It's because I wasn't up against it, and the reason I wasn't up against it is because of the stick drift. It is a minor problem, but it is a problem that I think I am one of the first people to notice it. Well, I'm probably not the first person to notice it, but I'm the first person to, like, speak about it because I've not seen anybody say anything about this problem. Anyways, there's only a couple levels that you actually need to input codes, and once you learn what, like, that this is a thing, you can just circumvent it and just move around it, but it is slightly annoying. Another small glitch that I noticed, and this is not a big problem at all, you're not really going to notice this unless you, like, specifically do something that causes this glitch to happen, but on certain levels, whenever you're in the menu and you specifically select to spawn on that level, like, you don't have to spawn on level 1 and then go all the way through. You can spawn on whichever level you want to. There are specific ones where you will die in the opening scene, like when the, like, logos are still playing, you will die. And I don't know why you're allowed to be hit by the entity when you're still being shown logos. It doesn't make any sense. One of these that I mentioned was the one when I was talking about the aesthetics, that parking lot level. The entity, when you're spawning into that level, you have to spawn into the level before it and then play that level to get to this level, because if you don't, you will just constantly die as soon as you spawn in every single time, and the game will freeze. It won't even bring up the start. Like, I would be like, whatever, I lose a life, you know, restart, but you can't respawn because it, like, glitches out. It's really annoying and weird, but as I said previously, it's not that big of a problem, and you wouldn't notice it unless you specifically spawned on some of these levels, because some of these levels, like, don't even have entities, so you wouldn't have that problem to begin with. It is something to mention, though. Another very small, very, very minor issue that I noticed is, once again, on that parking lot level, if you're too close to the entity, you will lag so hard that you can't run away from him anymore, and then you die. I don't know why this happens, but it does. It kind of sucks, because I don't like that level at all. So, but yeah, it's probably just like an Xbox-specific thing, because I'm sure PC has enough processing power to not lag, but very, very minor issue. Doesn't matter. Just thought I should mention it. So, this game we're going to give a 9 out of 10 for its gameplay. Now, the reason we're giving it a 9 out of 10 and not an 8 out of 10 like we gave to the Shrek in the Backrooms is because I feel like this game's problems are less pervasive and they don't matter as much to your gameplay experience as the glitches on Shrek in the Backrooms. Like, the stick drift thing's annoying, but you can very easily circumvent it. The other two problems, just don't be too close to the entity, or if you have a console with higher processing power, you don't have to worry about it, and just don't spawn in on that level without playing the previous level. They really don't cause too many problems to you, as where the Shrek in the Backrooms glitches, they can be like actual hindrances. in terms of your progression, like not being able to hear entities around corners and then you die, or having to restart levels because of some weird cutscene glitches. So we're going to give it a 9 out of 10 as opposed to an 8 out of 10 for its gameplay. So overall, we're going to give Paraphobia a final score of 8 out of 10, which all things considered is actually a very decent score. There was just a couple things holding it back from being a 10 out of 10, but I'm sure that in the future, maybe there could be some updates that could fix these very small problems, and then it would probably be a 9 out of 10 if they fix the gameplay problems. But other than that, I think that's pretty decent. We're going to move on to our final game. So, I am very excited for this game because if you remember the intro, if you watched it and didn't skip, I said that I wanted to tell you all about this one specific game that I had played, which is this game. This is probably the first or one of the first Backrooms games that was ever even made on Roblox, and is not nearly as popular as the other games that I mentioned. However, I think is far superior in every category than all of the games previously mentioned. This game is the true Backrooms. So, why don't we start out with its horror aspect? So, for the past few entries, I have complained about entities ruining the horror aspect. I've complained about crappy levels ruining the horror aspect. I've complained about crap on your screen, crap in the levels, things that could ruin the experience when it comes to the horror aspect. This game has none of those problems. It does have entities. Every single one of them is implemented properly, and they are by no means hindrances or the focal points of any of the levels that they are in. Every single new level that I entered, I felt scared shitless the entire time because I had been conditioned by the past few games to be expecting entities in every single level, or at least most of the levels, and for them to be the pervasive problem in each of the levels that they inhabit. This game, because of its lack of entities, it made me feel this feeling of loneliness and anxiety in every single level that I went into, and almost none of them have entities, and the ones that do, they don't even exist for that long. If we want to look at all of the entities in their actual levels that they inhabit and their implementation in each of the levels that they inhabit, we can sort of go through that right now. The first entity that you'll encounter is in the second level, and it's not even really an entity encounter, it's more of a jump scare. When you open a door, he pops out at you and he scares you. However, he doesn't kill you. This entity does not kill you, which is very useful because I don't like restarting levels because I die to entities. If we look at some of the other entities in the game though, they, like Escape the Backrooms, are confined to specific parts of the levels. However, they are even less focal points of their respective areas than the entities in Escape the Backrooms. Because in Escape the Backrooms, when you're running away from the entities, they are actually a decent part of the level. They are confined to a specific part of the level, but you're around them for quite a bit. Not in this game. The first entity that actually has some sort of bearing on whether or not you live or die is in level 4. In level 4, you are in this abandoned shopping mall. All throughout the shopping mall, there's a lot of signs that say that you're being watched on security cameras. You open some doors and you get into this room that says it's monitored by security and it is for authorized personnel only. When you enter this room, you are met with a lot of doors that are all locked except for one of them that you can enter and pick up a key. When you pick up this key, the alarms start blaring, and from out of the security closet comes this, like, entity that's covered with eyes. The entity is actually modeled after the level that it inhabits and the purpose that it inhabits. It's the security man. It's covered with eyes. He chases you around this basement area, and you can very easily escape him, 1, and 2, when you leave the basement area, he's gone for good. You don't have to deal with him anymore. You escaped him, you won, you can move on. If you die to him, it doesn't matter. You spawn at the beginning of the level with the key. You don't even have to get the key again. You just get jump scared, boo-hoo for you, and then you get sent back to the beginning of the level. I love that because you are able to be scared from the atmosphere of the level, which is what you're supposed to be scared by for most of the gameplay, and then you get scared by an entity in a very minor way comparatively to the rest of these games that we've mentioned previously. This is how the Backrooms, in my opinion, should operate. You are scared because you're alone, and that is what you are for the vast majority of these levels. Level 3 is another level that is very perfect in terms of its horror aspect. There are no entities on this level, but I was scared shitless. This level is actually quite interesting. You're in this, like, abandoned office space that you can't use your flashlight, so most of the, like, area is very dark. You would expect that an entity would pop out of nowhere to scare you in the dark. Never happens. There's some sort of dynamic features where you can, like, click lights on and off. Some, like, hallways will be illuminated. And there are secret levels in this game. If you flip on 6 lights, you unlock a door that was not there previously. You had no idea the door was there previously unless you went back there after flipping on all the lights. Some of these lights are in secret locations. Isn't that cool? That's right, yeah. A lot of secrets. I love that. However, due to all of these features like the dim lights and being able to flip the lights on, you are sort of forced to actually engage in the level in a way that you would not have to in these other games, which can add to the feelings of fear because you're sort of forced to explore the level in a more, like, complete manner, if that's to say. Like, a lot of these levels in other games, I don't want to explore them more than I have to, because I don't want the entity to kill me. It'll send me back to the beginning, and then I have to start all over again, and it's like, I don't want to have to explore more than I have to. And the reason for that is because I'm being scared for the wrong reasons. This game makes you scared for the right reasons, which makes you want to explore the levels in a more, like, complete manner, which I think is awesome. And because you're scared for the right reasons, you are able to be scared by some, like, very interesting things. For example, this clip here.
No entities either. I don't know if I mentioned that. This one does not have, like, a crazy cool soundtrack. I do like this. What the fuck was that? Am I tripping? Hold on, what the hell just happened? That wasn't an entity. There's no entities in this level.
You have no idea how unbelievably scared that made me. And the thing about it is, that would not have even worked in the other games, because you're being chased by, like, Chuckles McFuck over here the entire level. So you can't be scared by something small like that. By the way, he does not even matter. That little dude popping out of the corner, he doesn't even appear in the rest of the level. It's something that is so cool. It's something that can only happen when you give the right kind of horror aspect to your levels. And that is what this game does perfectly. So, without any more belaboring this point, it gets a 10 out of 10 for its horror aspect. Category 2 is, of course, the aesthetic. Something that I did not mention for the last few games that I will be mentioning here is the sound design. And the reason I didn't mention it in the last few games is because the sound design is not particularly unique or at all it doesn't really matter specifically for this review or the aesthetic or the horror aspect or whatever, because it's just the normal like footstep sounds, entity noises, and then maybe the ambience of just an empty room or the hum buzz of level 0. But this game specifically has bomb-ass tracks that play in every single level except for level 1 and 2. I don't think that they actually have any tracks that play. However, the rest of these do have some sort of music in the background that you can listen to as you play the level. And this sound design does matter for the aesthetics of the level. The Backrooms is not all bad. If you look on the wiki or you just sort of go into your mind and think of Backrooms levels and the threats that different levels have, you'll notice that there are some levels that are good. If you were to no-clip into the Backrooms, there are some levels that you'd certainly want to be in over other levels. And this game knows that. This game does not have entities in every single level. Some of these levels are completely safe. So, if the levels are completely safe, why do you have to be scared constantly? You don't. So why not give you some uplifting music? There are a couple of levels in here that are very peaceful and are very harmonious, and they have very uplifting music in the background that makes you want to play the game more and fits in the aesthetic of the Backrooms. It is truly Dreamcore-esque whenever you have a more uplifting track, and there are certain tracks that sort of hinge more on the weirdcore side. There are other tracks that sort of have a Dreamcore or weirdcore feel, but are more of a scary track, which can contribute to the horror aspect that I mentioned previously. However, in terms of the aesthetic, the soundtrack is very important in conveying all of these emotions. It's part of the reason why I was scared so shitless in a lot of these levels, because the sound design made me more scared than I would have been if it was just a completely quiet level. You will not need me to show you any examples of the sound design, by the way, because you've been hearing it throughout this entire video. You can hear every single track pretty much that's actually in the game in this video, because I'm playing them all right now. You tell me, do these tracks feel like the Backrooms to you? I feel like they do. I feel like they do quite a bit. And I feel like a lot of you would agree with me on that. The game developers did a beautiful job on the soundtrack, and it's what helps contribute to the aesthetic more than just some sort of level design, I think. However, level design does matter. As I said previously, if the level doesn't feel like the Backrooms, it doesn't matter how good the sound design is, it doesn't feel like the Backrooms and thus does not have the right aesthetic. Well, all of these levels feel like the Backrooms, quite a bit. None of these levels are actual levels, I don't think. I don't think on the wiki you can look up all of these levels and all of them will show up. I don't think that's true. This game is more based on a game called Interliminality, which I did play, and Interliminality does not feel like the Backrooms at all. This game feels like the Backrooms, but you can tell that it's more inspired from Interliminality than it is from like other Backrooms games. However, even though none of these Backrooms levels are real, they feel like Backrooms levels because they take the liminal space and liminal design from Interliminality and they combine it with aspects of the Backrooms to perfectly mesh together with that concept to make a Backrooms level that feels like the Backrooms in spades. These levels are amazing. Some of these levels are just so fun too. Like, a lot of the secret levels, none of the secret levels, by the way, have entities, none of them do. And all of them are very short, but they can feel like some pretty fire and some pretty interesting Backrooms levels concepts without having to be too big of a level that you have to sort of like run through or like deal with. They're very fun, especially Render Dream. Render Dream is my favorite and it has my favorite song. That level's awesome. All of the games previously had a level or two that didn't quite fit the bill. This game has 0 levels that do not fit the bill. Even the secret levels, which there are quite a few of them, all of them feel like the Backrooms, and you can tell that they could very well fit in the Backrooms if you were to no-clip here. Like, you could see yourself like actually going through the Backrooms and being no-clipped to some of these levels because all of them feel like true Backrooms levels. And it takes a special kind of knowledge about the topic to be able to make level after level after level after level, and all of them fit perfectly. It's not something that you can do by accident. This was purposeful. And this game gets that aesthetic correct in every single level. I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again probably. And for that, this game gets a 10 out of 10 in aesthetic. I can't give it anything less. It wouldn't make sense. This game has the aesthetic down perfect. It doesn't have any of the problems that I mentioned in the previous games, and so it has to get a 10 out of 10. And so it does. And yeah, it gets a 10 out of 10 in aesthetic. So now we're going to move to the gameplay. This is going to be very short. It's a 10 out of 10. There are no glitches. That's about it. There are no glitches. It gets a 10 out of 10. This section is about glitches and how the game plays. The game plays perfectly fine. I did not run into any annoyances, bugs, or any sort of problems that would need to be mentioned here. So, 10 out of 10. Overall, the True Backrooms gets a score of 10 out of 10. That is the average it gets, because it got a perfect score in every single category, making it the best ranking game out of every game that we've mentioned here today. The rankings go as follows: True Backrooms, 10 out of 10. Apeirophobia, 8 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for Escape the Backrooms, and 6 out of 10 for Shrek in the Backrooms. If you guys like this video, make sure to leave a comment, subscribe, like, and all that crap down below. If you'd like to see a part 2 to this video, you can suggest some Backrooms games in the comment section that are on Roblox, and I'd love to play them and give you guys my review on them. And that's about all I have to say for this video, guys. Have a good one.